I'm that girl who asks the collectives, what else can I do? And to show me it firmly and easily so I don't just mull over it for quite some time. Give it to me fast is basically what I said. And boy, did they deliver it. And so we used our free will, and it seems like it was the most appropriate time for them to be able to grant it. Fantastic, right? Jazz hands. So what I'm referring to, if you don't know, is a session that Sally and myself did in my evening, and her evening was a late one, to be able to help get all of the collectives together to be able to give people profound epiphanies in the most sort of direct begging from us in a very direct way. And as you heard, it was very significant timing because they were given access and granted more options to really focus. They are really focusing, and they're really wanting us to focus on the things that are significant to what we're supposed to be focusing on, and leave all the sort of distractions behind, even though we all know that they are quite tempting to be distracted. So, you know me, I like those sessions to speak for themselves. But today they have prompted me to re-listen to that session again and to be able to break it down and to have small bite-sized conversations with you about the experience of having that sessions and what they truly meant. Mansplaining their work and information, doesn't sort of feel like it's really necessary in some regards, but also they're wanting me to unpack it more deeply and take you with the journey with me. So I was trying to figure out who that collective was, or who those new beings were. And as I was discussing it with Sally afterwards, trying to think into, well, who were they? They sort of introduced themselves as being sort of new to being accountable. And it's a really strange thing, right? We don't really feel like these higher dimensional beings need to be accountable for anything, but because we just sort of trust that they are, they're doing their best versions of them, and they're fantastic and they're advanced, and all is well. But when you are creating planets, and when you're creating life experiences, and when you're creating vessels, and when you are sort of behind the scenes, creating the meat suits, I say that with love, the humanoid bodies, and also the range of humanoid emotions and experiences, it feels like those who had this kind of idea, why not come to a 3D planet and feel these basic range of emotions? And so that sort of seems like what their template was. And it's got quite out of hand with that. And so it feels like somehow those beings that we were mostly talking to yesterday were those who had sort of designed the templates of the range of emotions and what was really the triggering root factor of certain things that we love to label and sort of understand. So it was very interesting. They sort of got frustrated with themselves because the concepts from them, they are so all-knowing that to try and explain what source is was something that they want me to talk about today and to expand upon it. So they were already, because I was thinking about it after the session, and I was trying, and this was before I had sort of heard it, and I was like, why were you getting so like frustrated and upset about not being able to explain the concept of source? And the root of their problems were that we don't really see ourselves as source. We see that source is this God that does everything, is untouchable, but relatable. We see that God is so distant and different from us. And what they were sort of saying is, we have to sort of remember that we are part of source. We're a small soul fragment aspect of source. And this reminds me of another conversation I had with another practitioner where we both sort of at the same time sort of realized, is there more than one source? is there multitudes, an infinite number of different types of sources, which is all a big conglomerate. I don't know the right words to say to describe it, but it feels like all of the consciousnesses of certain planets in a certain location potentially have all come together as a soul consciousness, as a consciousness, all focusing and witnessing, all experiencing all, and they've sort of divided up their soul essences to have physical lifetimes, but all to come back together, and we're all so connected in. But potentially there could be multitudes of sources, which is all big collectives of consciousnesses. So it's very interesting, and we could expand upon it more, but it almost sort of seems like we breach what our minds can even absorb. Anyway, and so though I was trying to figure out what was what was the point of them trying to say about source. And they started to give me one analogy, and it didn't kind of work out for them, and they weren't that sort of happy with it because it sort of wasn't fully right. So the first analogy they gave me was, it is like going to a store, like a big chain store, and wanting a refund from something, or you've spilt, you've walked in with muddy shoes into a really big chain store that's got, I don't know, hundreds, thousands of stores. And so you've walked into one of them, and you've walked around with all this muddy feet and shoe prints. And then you're wanting the owner of that massive big chain to come and help you. First of all, they showed me wanting a refund and going directly to the owner, the top owner of that store, of that chain, to come to you to give you a refund. And they're sort of saying, well, the owner doesn't even have like a login to even use the computer systems to be able to do the official transaction of refunds. They don't even know how to work a cash register sort of thing. They don't have that kind of access. They don't have that capability or knowledge. And they're not even in the same sort of country. And here we are expecting that we're going to have the direct top come in and help us with exchange of our poor choices, or, oh, this didn't fit when I got home and found out that my skinny jeans aren't skinny. Anyway, but they didn't like that analogy because they're like, source isn't the owner. Okay, so it doesn't own, doesn't control, it's a silent partner, if you will, in that analogy. And so for us to sort of expect that the owner of this massive big chain is going to come and do a refund for us, you'd expect, if you did actually get the physical person that was responsible and owned everything, that they would say, oh, just have it, take it, exchange it, whatever, I don't care. But there is rules and laws about doing that, right? So, it becomes sort of technical, even though we sort of can't imagine that it would be, because you own the joint, like, give me heaps of stuff. I'm an unhappy customer. The customer is always right, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, so then they changed it to being like, well, if you did walk on in the store with super muddy shoes, and then you're wanting the owner, top dog, to come and clean that for you, they also aren't going to do it, for various reasons. And maybe because they're not even in the same country. It's not what they would ever want to do. They would pay people to do it. That's below them, right? So of course, source isn't rich. So you can see how the analogy doesn't quite work out. So then they were sort of saying, it's like this. You're in an empty square room that's just got the floor, walls, and a ceiling. And so you've walked on that dirty floor, and you're expecting the ceiling to somehow come and clean that mess up. And the ceiling's the ceiling. The ceiling's doing the best job and the best way of being a ceiling. It cannot physically come down to clean our messes up, even if it wanted to. It's the ceiling. That's the role of its job, is to be the ceiling. And so it seems like we have sort of given some of our own power away, assuming that source can fix our shit, clean our crap. And it is our physical role and our physical responsibilities to do this. And we didn't realize that we are so powerful that we can do it ourselves. But we sort of feel like, even though we all know we're parts of source, right? We all know we're physical, walking experiences of source in these physical bodies. So therefore, we are able to clean up our messes. We are able to do the best we can when we realize we are capable of doing it. And it feels like that's what they were trying to get at yesterday, was we are so capable of doing what we need to do instead of relying on source to fix some of the things. So we're not understanding what source can do, and so we're sort of we've got some assumptions about it. And it sort of felt like when they were feeling into how people were understanding this, it was kind of like they were a little bit heartbroken, because they're like, no, source is here to help us. Source is everything. Source is all wise, all knowing, and it is 100% that, but it is not capable of physically cleaning density. It's not its job. It's not its role. It's not able to do it. And it's purposeful why it can't do it. And it feels like for some people listening, it really sort of not broke their hearts, because that's a bit dramatic, but I kind of just realized that here we are expecting the top guys to do it, fix it, clean it, do whatever. And yet, it's actually our responsibility. It's actually our purpose. It's actually we're supposed to be doing this. And so while this is great because it's given us epiphanies to realize what we're supposed to be doing, what our roles are here, it kind of puts a little bit more responsibility back on us again, right? And I mean, it's all purposeful. So it was so interesting to feel that whole session. It was definitely a roller coaster ride. From their perspective, it's so easy. God, they just can't understand how we make it so complicated. It baffles them almost that we could easily just choose to have great compassion and love for each other, and yet we do everything but that. And they just it's interesting anyway. So yeah, when you feel into them and their perspectives of how simple this is, if we chose to actually figure out the purpose of it all, simple, right? So this was a really important thing. And so they really want us to really honor what they've asked from us, right? Because we know that we can be of service, and we know that we are, the beings on the ground. We are the physical. We are able to transmute the energy, literally, physically. We are the cleanup crew, if you will, with much love, right? Look at us graduating. We're no longer toenails anymore. we're cleaners. And the joy of that. So, know ourselves and know that we're here to be of service, and we have a mission. And so it seems like they love the idea of people listening to that session many times to really hear the significances of what they're saying. And it feels like it could have easily been broken up into many different smaller sessions. So they were very concerned at the end that it was way too much information for people to absorb on one listen. And so they're begging us to go back and listen to it again. And this is why it feels like they're wanting me to listen to it myself in small amounts, and then try to explain in a more human, casual way what they were trying to get at, and to be able to sort of give it to us in a different perspective. Okay. So the grounding was a really significant one. And it seems like many people were not understanding what they were actually doing when we ground. And so it's, again, just hearing their perspective of what's happening, right? We ground to dump a whole lot of density out into the earth. And it almost feels wrong and rude. And how dare we? We don't litter, we don't just dump a whole lot of garbage everywhere, do we? But yet, we've basically heard and been given permission. That's literally what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're grounding ourselves down. So we're walking on the earth, which seems like this big, thirsty magnet of density right now, and it's wanting to be fed. It loves it. Let's just pretend that, right? It loves it. It's so trying to draw and attract and magnetize so much more density to itself, because it's just got to that point where it's just a gobbled up monster of density, right? So we're feeding it, and that's fantastic. So while we are removing that density off, which is around humanity, so they were sort of saying it's so thick that whatever you know is the distance between the Earth and the Moon, it's that thick, and it's not just a little bit of smoke, it's a fog, it's a thick fog. And so they're loving us to use our free will and to use the fact that we're here as energetic beings to be able to be the cleaners to transmute this energy, and we can do it so well. This is the purpose of why we're here, right? So when we do that 15-minute meditation, we fully have trained and learned how to fully, deeply relax our whole bodies and our whole minds. And that makes us the best vessels to bring in this energy, to force down all that density. And, we are tapping into source life energy. So source is using us, right? We are the middleman, and we love that, middle woman, whatever, And so we are being the vehicles of service. And so we are connecting more into our higher selves to be able to shine higher frequency out around us, and also drive that density down. And it's not just for us, but it's for our communities. And they are saying, as soon as you get into that deep state of relaxation, where you're not holding any tension in the bodies, when you're not thinking about other things, that's when you are the best open vessels for high frequency energy to push down that density and absorb it, and then really bury it in the ground. And that is going to be so significant. So they're wanting us to do that daily, or as often as we can. And you don't have to listen to that whole 15-minute thing, right? You just listen to it a few times, you get the sense, you can do it, you know how to do it. And so it's literally you could just do it sitting up and just fully relaxing into the body, so there's no tension. And so then you're allowing yourself to be open up to high frequency vibrations. And so you are a conduit of that frequency. You know that you are capable of holding high frequency when there is no density that you are holding on to. It's like you can't do both. You can't hold on to high frequency and high density. And so one of them has to go. And so I was thinking, why is it that people feel the tingliness of the feet? We're laying down. Why is it that we would feel the energy coming out of our feet? We're not standing up. And they showed me as literal batteries. And, with the little bump on the top is a positive, and then the bottom's the negative. Somehow. Right, that, right? So, we are, it's interesting. Find out in your own sessions in terms of free. But it's so significant. Like they're begging us to be of service this way, because they can do other things which they've got, access to and can do. But it's not what we can do. What we can do is really significant and super purposeful. So we need to figure out what that is and how that is. So I'm going to leave it with you guys today. Please, if you can, feel into this. And I think if we all did this, we would see quite profound, rapid change, because what we're actively doing is using our free will to bury this density. And we understand what's to come, right? But we need to get humanity used to having a higher frequency, a higher perspective, a higher level of joy, a higher experience of higher emotions, for them to remember what that's truly like. And so when they do bottom out and have some fear and some scare and some fright, they will remember what's truly significant, which is connecting in with each other, connecting in with themselves. So I know lots of people are like, why would we want to raise our frequency vibrations up really high just to be destroyed emotionally when these big events come? And they're saying it's to prepare us, to train us to remember that we are very capable of having higher perspectives, high frequency vibrations, and to remember not to be distracted with the other things that are happening on the other side of the world, because that is a challenge in itself too, to be distracted. They keep saying that the people in your lives and in your communities are the most significant and important. And even if it's your online communities, that is still significant and important. Everyone in your life is significant and important, and you play a very significant and important role for them. So while we're focusing on people that aren't even in our physical reach, that is distracting us, because the people that we need to be focusing on are the people we can physically call, connect with, communicate with. You know, there's so much to be said about it. But anyway, I'm going to keep listening to that session myself and be able to recall the feelings and unpack it a little bit more. It's just so extraordinary. Anyway, my friends, I love you. Drink lots of water, and yeah, reach out to me if you're really struggling with something. You know, just having the other new, bigger perspective of something can really help us be able to unfold something that is maybe still keeping us stuck. Love you guys.